Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Onugha Chigoziem and you're welcome to our edition. You're welcome to another edition of our Facebook Live series. So today we are taking on the topic child spacing as it relates to human rights. What is child spacing? All of us know what child spacing is, but maybe the words, some of us may not understand the words, but definitely we know what child spacing is. So for us to get it familiar with what we already know, I'm going to explain what child spacing is in the simplest form of ways. So child spacing basically is just intervals between birth, the intervals between childbirth. Yeah, I think that's better for us. So giving space while birthing your children. You know, it's very common in villages and even aside villages, even around me, I see people who that happens to. Even okay, I remember in my secondary school, someone who taught one of our teachers who taught us home economics. She was well educated. Meanwhile, she was always pregnant. So in that case, we can say she didn't observe the family. Her family didn't observe child spacing. So child spacing is when you don't have to get pregnant every 6 months. Okay, getting pregnant after 6 months and above from the time you give birth to a child is not it's cool. It's fine for someone to be pregnant from like 7 months after birth to any other time upwards. But if you find yourself pregnant after 6 months or less that you just put to bed, it's very risky and it's economically unadvisable, totally unadvisable. Especially when we have to deal with the recent conditions and situations of Nigeria's economy, at least for now. So child spacing is not advisable health-wise and economic-wise, so to say. So usually when you see families who have a lot of children, who give birth to a lot of children at the same time, you would there's, there are some things that are very common with them. One, most of them are uneducated. It's just a few of them who are educated but still act somehow. So most of them are uneducated. The families are mostly uneducated who live in primitive, like very local areas, um, areas where information, they don't really get information across. And another thing that is very particular to people like that is poverty. They are usually very poor. If not very poor, um, they are below average. Meanwhile, on a normal day, if you check the family's income, you would find out that um, the what the kind of work and energy they put out to earn a living does not equate to the amount of money that you see them spend on themselves, because a lot of money goes into childbirthing, taking care of children. So imagine a family having two, three, four kids and really working hard. Definitely life is going to be better for them. But if you see a family giving birth, if you see a family whereby the wife gives birth, the mother of the family gives birth every year, it's you're definitely going to find out that poverty will be sitting right in their midst. So that's the reason we say it is economically unadvisable. And the reason we say it is unadvisable health-wise is because you don't the woman now who takes in the child and brings out the child doesn't get to give her body some time to relax and feel and revive and rejuvenate. You know, when a woman gets within the period a woman gets pregnant, carries a child or children, depending on the situation, for a lot of time, that period the body, even looking at the person's body physically, the body sags and a lot of things. Person looks weak, ugly, and after the body sags and person gets so fat and all that. So of course we know fat is not healthy. Of course we know sagging of body is not something that everybody wants, which is not good, and that is just for the physical. Then for the inside, your organs are weak. You don't get to give them breathing space. So in that case, a lot of things, the woman puts her body in a lot of risks. And some women, most women do not even know this, because it is something that happens every time, even around us. So I won't, it's something we really try to advise people against because there's nothing beautiful about it. You can have as much children as you wish, which is not, which of course I've made mention of the fact that plenty children are another topic, which is not advisable depending on the economy of a country and your means of livelihood and all that. So even if you want to give birth to a dozen, at least you don't have to give birth every year. It's not advisable. So now moving on to the real topic, which is child spacing as it relates to human rights. When we talk of human rights, most of us already know because this is our organization is a human rights one, and most of the things we talk about, we try to put sprinkle little bits of human aspects of human rights into it because that's what we deal in. So now, child spacing as it relates to human rights. Human rights, first of all, is that right that upon your birth, upon your conception, you are crowned with. So no one can take away human rights. It's not transferable. It's destroyed upon someone's death. But so long as you breathe, you have human rights. So even before the constitution, it's got enshrined into our constitution by the lawmakers. Every human being already had it. So they are God-given rights. So, um, so you don't have human rights because you are rich. It's not based on status or color or sex or anything. So, if you're a human being, you're a child or ever, you have human rights. That's the reason. Someone asked me some time ago, what about a woman who conceives? Okay, is a fetus, can a fetus be said to have right to life? Because I was talking about right to life. Then I say yes. I said yes. You know, that's the reason our law really condemns, that's one of the reasons our law condemns abortion. Because there is life. Science will tell you that there is life. You know, some people say, 1 month is still blood. That blood has breath. I don't know, it's about science anyway. I can't really explain it, but it's both science and all that. So upon conception, that thing, that whatever it is you carry has life. So anyone who does anything to you, he who hits you or something, or now in the process, you can miscarry your child, the person can go in for it because the person removed life out of you, like practically killed someone or a living thing, something like that. So now I have explained what human rights is. So now child spacing as it relates to human rights. You know, this whole thing, the crux of child spacing, the disadvantages is mostly, sorry, on the woman. Why I say mostly on the woman is because when in terms of economic disadvantage, well, the man bears the brunt. That's for families where the men are really taking taking their mm, responsibilities seriously. Then in some homes, you still see that the wives are the breadwinners and the husbands just answer head of the home. So in a situation whereby the husband really is the head of the home, he takes care of the home, money-wise, production-wise, and all that. So you see that just the economic part hits on the man and also hits on the woman because most of the time women also work. So a woman will get to work harder than she on a normal day would work, which of course will slow down her health. And aside that, a woman takes care of the home and does a whole lot of work, even carries the pregnancy and all that. So even while she does this whole home care and pregnancy and all that, she still works. So you can imagine when you go through all this other burden, you have all this other burden, and you are still working 3 times as you ought to work. The economic hardship is also hits the woman, even though the society doesn't say it that way. But okay. So now when we talk about the health situation, the man is definitely not going to not going to be affected. Meanwhile, men feel they are the ones who have to tell their wives when to give birth and all that. Meanwhile, like they don't see it that they are not the ones carrying the baby. All they do is to put what the woman incubates. So the woman's body is the house. So that house is the one that is going to suffer from every problem that comes with not spacing your child. So now that's the reason the human rights aspect what I'm going to talk about, everything I'm going to talk about is going to be largely on the part of the woman because she is the one who has the body which may get if affected if anything goes wrong. So now I'm going to talk about this discussion. I'm going to base this discussion on the African Charter on human and people's rights. The Ratification and Enforcement Act, Laws of the Federation, 1990. Nigeria ratified and, will I say, started enforcing the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and so we can now. It is a part of our laws. So we also they are also guiding Nigeria since the time Nigeria signed to it and ratified the laws to govern her. So I'm going to today's discussion. We have talked about constitution and a whole lot of other Nigerian laws. So now today I purposely said I'm going to use the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Ratification and Enforcement Act, Laws of our Federation, 1990. So in Article 2 of that African Charter of that law says every individual shall be entitled to the enjoyment of the rights and freedom recognized and guaranteed in the present charter without distinction of any kind such as race, ethnic group, color, sex, language, religion, political or any other opinion, national and social origin, fortune, birth or other status. Now, if you look at the beginning part, it says every individual shall be entitled to the enjoyment of the rights and freedom recognized and guaranteed in the present charter without distinction of any kind. Now, when we talk about enjoyment of rights and freedom, a woman now has the right and the freedom to choose what she wants to happen in her body. So that you married a woman doesn't mean you are in control of her life. Yes, when we get married, we become one. But eventually, when the woman dies, the husband is not going to hold her to the grave. That still points towards the fact that every person, every party in a marriage has freedom, has the right to do whatever he or she wants to do with his or her body. Even though sometimes, depending on the situation, you desist from doing something because of your religion, you feel it is not good, or because of the happiness of your spouse, you feel you shouldn't do it. That's left to you. But I'm telling you that every human being has the right to do whatever he or she pleases with herself or himself. So in this situation, a woman has the right, is entitled to the enjoyment of the rights and of her rights and freedom. So a woman is free to say, okay, I want it this way. What about we? It's about talking about it peacefully and about the man realizing that the body is not his. So and it's about the both of them getting to understand themselves and agree to something. But the woman does have a say, unlike in most homes where women do not have any say. So it's the man that says we are going to have 80 children. We'll see how I've planned it. Some men are like that. I've planned it that this year we are going to have 2. This way, they will plan it as if they are the ones even putting determining if the child will actually go into the woman's body or not. However, so that is not right. A woman is entitled to enjoyment of her rights and freedoms, and these rights, of course, are all encompassing. But I don't want to go into other kind of rights. But the rights I'm going to be particular about is the right that gives the woman the liberty to fare well. So in Article 4, it says human beings are inviolable. Every human being shall be entitled to respect for his life and the integrity of his person. No one may be arbitrarily deprived of this right. So it shows that a woman in a marriage is entitled to respect for her life and the integrity of her person. And no one has the right to deprive her of these things. So, you may not understand it this way, but I'm going to explain this to you because some people would say, what about what? It doesn't relate. Like, how do you relate entitlement to respect for her life and integrity? Yes, it is. It is abusive for you to push your opinion down the throat of a woman, an adult. Remember, your wife is not a child. So your wife is an adult who has been groomed and who has been groomed and taken and brought up by a family who looks up to her as an adult. That you have taken her hand in marriage doesn't mean you can now take her and now belittle her and treat her like a child or whatever you feel, or a puppet that doesn't have words of its own. So a woman, depriving of a woman of her desires to fare well in this instance is depriving her of her entitlement to respect for her life and integrity of her person. So you realize that normally, as a human being, if you are, if you know that if you have the knowledge, if you have the knowledge and the understanding that you are someone has respect for you, someone feels you are worth something, and you have the liberty to do some things as you wish, you have the pride and you have the integrity, you feel proud of yourself, and you feel fulfilled. There's this kind of fulfillment that you feel. So that is the same way a woman in a marriage feels when her husband understands her, when her husband allows her have freedom to think, freedom to give her own opinion, and have her own opinion respected, so long as it doesn't mean disrespect, so long as it's not wrong. Even if it's wrong, she has the right to make any decision. So she now deciding not to do that wrong thing is based on the understanding relationship or the peace talk between the husband, she and her husband. So she's an adult. She can decide to go out and do whatever she wants to do. She's an adult. But her understanding that saying depriving herself of all those other things is because she doesn't feel like doing it, or because she feels religiously it is not nice, or she feels her partner is not going to be happy about it. So that's totally based on understanding and also understanding, basically. So, but aside the fact that a woman would understand and say, no, it's going to make my spouse unhappy, or religiously it is not nice, she has the right. Aside that, she has the right to feel whichever way she feels like, because she's a human being. So she was a human being before she got married to you. So marriage does not vitiate the fact that she is a human being and she possesses some rights. So Article 5 says every individual shall have the right to the respect of the dignity inherent in a human being and to the recognition of his legal status. All forms of exploitation and degradation of man, particularly slave trade, torture, cruel, inhumane, or degrading punishment and treatment shall be prohibited. So when a husband pushes the opinion down his wife and not doesn't allow her make her own decisions or contribute to the family's welfare, especially when it concerns her most especially, then the man is depriving her of the right to respect of to her right to human dignity. So she has the right to human dignity and should not be exploited by any reason, or should not be given degrading treatment of actually slavery is, a woman can be in slavery in her marriage. So of course we know that a slave doesn't have a say. A slave sits where you ask him or her to sit. A slave jumps when you ask him or her to jump. So when you put your wife in this position, you are actually making her a slave in the marriage. So this part of the article prohibits all that kind of treatment. So Article 6 says every individual shall have the right to liberty and the security of his person. No one may be deprived of his freedom except for reasons and conditions previously laid down by law. in particular, no one may be arbitrarily arrested or detained. So looking at the words of every individual shall have the right to liberty and to the security of his person. So when you allow a woman make good decisions for herself, you are giving her security. She's secure. So in this instance, when you allow her make choices, because some women understand these things, because when you carry your body, you feel what goes on. When you have a headache, when your womb itches you or pains you or does anything to you, when you feel somehow inside your body, so you know that giving, most of the times when you have to give birth 2 times in a year, you know that your body feels it. You feel somehow. So the woman sometimes, even though the woman is not educated, but she knows her body is not faring well. So when you disregard her opinion and you push your opinion down her throat, she lays vulnerable to some illnesses and all that, you are making her insecure. So that is part of security. So she has the right to liberty. Also talking about liberty, that's freedom, liberty to choose what she wants to do with her body, how she wants to carry her child, and all that. So once you are falling outside this, you're prohibiting the law. Then Article 8 says freedom of conscience, the profession and free practice of religion shall be guaranteed. No one may, subject to law and order, be submitted to measures restricting the exercise of this freedom. So looking at the words of freedom of conscience, so if you allow your wife to be totally a human being and an adult, of which she is, and make her own decisions and give her own opinions and think straight like an adult and like a human being that she is, you are giving her freedom to freedom. You are giving her freedom of conscience. So, but when you make her know that there's no need of her thinking, no need of her having a different opinion, because it's definitely not going to be applied in that home, you are actually prohibiting this part of the law. So Article 16 also says every individual shall have the right to enjoy the best attainable states of physical and mental health. So, what we call trauma and mental disorder comes from different things. So when you can imagine, okay, just carrying a load, you can imagine carrying a load every single time. You carry loads every single day from morning to night, from morning to night. Depending on the kind of person you are, it can actually get you traumatized because of the weight of the suffering and all that. It can get you traumatized. That is even a load that you can ease yourself off. You can say, okay, let me rest a bit, let me rest for 5 minutes. But having children is not something the woman can say, oh, I feel pains and itches in my back. Let me remove this child and keep aside for a minute and then put this one back. It's not something that happens like that. So when a woman, that's for the mental health part. So when a woman carries a child day in, like every year she gives birth, the whole pains and everything, you don't allow her to make her own decisions, you are putting her mental health at risk. And you are also putting her physical state at risk. You are putting her state of physical and mental health at risk. Like I talked about saggy bodies, which is normal anyway. But you can imagine because all these things, even where the child comes out from, when a woman gives birth, she's supposed to stay for a period of time so that her body contrasts, gets back together, goes back into shape. She walks out, gets her body back. But when she gives birth all the time, just like when you have a rubber band, you keep drawing it, you stretch it, you never allow it to contract. You never allow it to contract. The rubber band is gradually going to get that wide that it would never get back to its normal shape. But when you put it in its elastic limit, and you allow it to contract back, there's chance that if you allow it to contract for a reasonable amount of time, it can get back to its original shape. But so you can imagine, put a woman in this scenario now. So use a woman to take remove the rubber band and now use a woman to replace that space. So you see, when a woman gives birth all the time, year in, year out, her body would never be the same. So, and you are still the same person who is going to say, oh, you don't like the way her stomach is shooting out, because you don't even allow her work out and put her stomach back, her whole body back. So her physical state is what, her everything is just not making sense. So, and when you find yourself in this, within this, going out of this context, you are going, you're violating the law. So Article 28 says, which is the last one I'm going to talk about, every individual shall have the duty to respect and consider his fellow beings without discrimination and to maintain relations aimed at promoting, safeguarding, and reinforcing mutual respect and tolerance. So this explains the case. So, the reason a woman in a home is not allowed to make her own decisions, even though it concerns her majorly, is because of that she's a woman. How can a woman have mouth? How can a woman say what she wants to do? Like, don't you realize it's her body? Don't you realize she's an adult? She's a separate human being from you. So, it's totally, I don't know. Sometimes I don't get to understand it. So you don't. That's the that is because of that discrimination, because she's a woman. That's the reason you don't allow her make her own decisions. So this article describes everything I'm talking about here: the discrimination, and to maintain relations aimed at promoting, safeguarding, and reinforcing mutual respect and tolerance. So the husband has that duty to respect and consider his wife. So here it says every individual shall have the duty to respect and consider his fellow human beings without discrimination. So I'm going to replace fellow human beings with wife. So every individual shall have the duty to respect and consider okay, sorry, this individual I'm going to replace it with husband. Every husband shall have the duty to respect and consider his wife without discrimination and to maintain relations aimed at promoting, safeguarding, and reinforcing mutual respect and tolerance. So you see, the law puts that burden on all of us. So when a husband is not acting with regards to Article 8, when he has to, with regards to his wife, he's actually violating this part of the law. So with the few things I have spoken about, I really wish to believe that everyone watching this and everyone who's going to watch this after this live video would understand, and peradventure, if there's anything that seems unclear to you, you can drop your message below and be assured that we would reply as soon as we get your message. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again. That's if I'm going to be the one here, or yeah. So I hope to see you again next Thursday when we'll be coming back with another interesting topic.